Hey Jews, I want to talk about Judaism, in quotations, religion. Okay, so this is from Sefer Yesodei Torah from the Rambam. In 1, he says, religion, in quotations, came to the children of Israel as an inheritance from their fathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and not as a teaching from Moshe Rabbeinu. So basically what this means is that if you and I, Jews, if we grew up in the house of Avraham Avinu, we would have seen angels all the time. I've read that even the servants, even Eliezer, his servant, saw angels. He was used to that. That was the reality. And in Yaakov Avinu's house, they all understood the way that this world works. And they knew that this was different. This is special. This is holy. This is the side of the Kedusha. So they knew this. We see this also from Mamla, as we read, that when the brothers went down to Egypt and they were with Yosef, who was a viceroy of all of Egypt, they didn't know his identity at that time. But Yehuda understood. He had a thought that maybe this is Joseph, because he saw basically that Joseph and Menashe had a lot of power that he understood could only come from the side of the Kedusha. It says there in a midrash that he tried to take his sword out of its sheath and it would not come out. So he understood he was standing in front of a righteous person. So had we grown up in the home of Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, or Yaakov Avinu, we would know a different reality. We would understand the different laws of life that would allow us to experience the reality as it truly is, with understanding all of the divine information. So in the prayer before we say the Shema, we say that our forefathers trusted in God because they knew the laws to live by, which we can also know the laws and understand that many things in our reality we should be seeing as Jews that we're not seeing or not understanding properly. For example, if you see a bee pollinating a flower, we don't think of this as a miracle. But if you live in a ghetto like I do, and there's nothing around you, and you plant a seed that requires a bee to pollinate it, and a bee comes to pollinate it, how does the bee know to come here? How does the bee get here? Where does this bee live? How did he know? And then we contemplate this and we think about this and we understand that these things nothing makes sense unless you factor into it God. And this is information that we should know because this is our inheritance as Jews. So other things that would be normal for us to see would be angels and many other great miracles that they saw when we had the temple. Because this is just part of reality that we should be understanding and even seeing with our eyes if we were at a higher spiritual level. So for example, in the first temple, they had a tree that would give a golden fruit. And this would be normal. So the Rambam here tells us that basically Moshe Rabbeinu gave the Torah to us so that we could learn the laws to live by for the future generations. The family of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the 70 souls that went down to Egypt, they knew how to live in a way that they would see reality clearly. But as the generations went on and on and on, and especially us in the exile, we're like spiritual orphans. We didn't receive the proper laws to live by, as it's just a matter of fact that we could understand all of reality in its complexity with all of the dimensions. 3 physical, 1 spiritual, and 1 is time, in a way that we would understand properly. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu gave us the Torah and all the laws to live by. And as a result, a Jew should ask himself, at what point am I going to start seeing a different reality? Am I going to start understanding things differently? How will I learn to live with bitachon, with the trust that I pray every day for, like my forefathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that they lived with bitachon? So I can understand when I contemplate the fact that one bee comes and pollinates my melons, and I live on a balcony in the middle of nowhere in a ghetto surrounded by nothing. How does this being know how to get here? And then I understand that reality is much more complicated than it might seem. But if I understand the information in the Torah, I can understand that there is a complex reality, how God is involved in this reality, and this is my inheritance as a Jew. And then I feel sad, and I read Chronicles, and I say, I'm a spiritual orphan. We're all spiritual orphans at this point. We have to reattach our understanding of reality via the Torah. And this is to help us, since we are spiritual orphans in this exile. This is to help us understand and live properly, so that when also the revelation happens and we will all become prophets, basically, we'll all see God, then it won't be so shocking. So this is the practice of the quote unquote religion, all the laws, the good laws to live by, to elevate our awareness and our consciousness to actual objective reality, which our forefathers just knew. And even the servants in their home knew. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we all will know again very soon, when we, Be'ezrat Hashem, have the redemption and the temple will stand again, and we can marvel at all of these things that were hidden before our very eyes because we did not learn and know and practice.